Good morning, everybody. How are you? Hope that you're doing well. Happy Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday. Yes, it is. Tuesday, October 22nd. Where has October gone? It feels like we were just talking about October 1 not so long ago, because I remember we talked about it being the start of the fourth quarter and what that can mean in some companies, some teams. But here we are, October 22nd. Where does the time go, guys? Where does the time go? So I really hope that all of you are doing well, that everything is good in your part of the world. I hope that you and your families are safe. And I'm glad that all of us here have an opportunity to talk again and meet as data scientists, meet as a community, and invest time in each other and in ourselves in learning more about data science. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being part of this community. And, thank you to all the new followers also. My channels are still growing at a pretty good rate. So really happy about that. And that means that we might have some new people really at any given time in the chat. So if you're new, please let us know your city, state, province, country. It's a good way for you to introduce yourself. It keeps our chat inclusive, lets us know where people are checking in from. And it just kind of helps us, build a little sense of community here. So if you're new, we invite you to do that. We call it part of our global roll call. And you're going to see the chat over here, over my shoulder here, fill up as people introduce themselves. But yeah, overall, today is one of those days where I have an article that I'd like for us to look at. And then I am open to your questions, as far as anything that I can help you with, or maybe somebody else in the community can help you with in terms of data science questions or doubts or thoughts that you might have. This is a good community for it. I like keeping the agenda open for your questions. That's part of what makes it fun for me. And, just kind of go from there. All right, already seeing a couple of new faces and some of our regular faces. So Rex, starting with Rex. Rex, you're such a consistent attendee. It's incredible. I really appreciate you. Hello from a sunny and 71 degrees in New York City in October. Yes, October. Isn't that crazy, Rex? Isn't that crazy? And I know that you're I think you told me you grew up in that area. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what it would have been, maybe 10 years ago, or when you were a kid in school or something. But yeah, absolutely. It's crazy weather that we are having, not just here, but really in all parts of the world. Yeah. But Rex, good to see you. Glad you're well. Krishna says Krishna Swami from India. Krishna, nice to see you here. Thanks for being here. I honestly can't remember if it's your first time or not. I think you've been here before. I think you've been here once or twice before. Either way, I really appreciate the introduction. Thank you for taking the time to introduce yourself. But yeah, welcome. Afsal, we ask people to let us know the city, state, country, province that they're from. So you're welcome to introduce yourself. That way we can get to know you a little bit better. Osama, our good friend from Satat. I was going to say Sabat, but I don't think that's even a city. Our good friend from Satat says, hello, sir. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing very well, thanks. Thank you so much. Yeah. I've changed my workout schedule so that now I'll be going out and walking after I finish my streams. So I haven't been outside yet, but I think it's going to be a nice day out today. Maybe a little bit warm. But, warm for October, as Rex is also saying. But overall, I think I'm doing well. Thank you. Hope the same for you, Assam. Hope the same for you and your family. You and your family. Anise, our good friend Anise says, hello, everyone. Hello, Dennis. I hope you're having a beautiful Tuesday. Thanks for that. Yeah. I think Tuesday is going to be a good day, right? It's good to be positive about how your day is going to start off, right? So, yeah, I think we're going to do just fine. Zaid, welcome. Zaid, I think this might be your first time. We always ask people to introduce themselves. Just let us know your city, state, province, country. Speaking of which, I haven't posted that in my Instagram yet. So let me go ahead and post that. So that should be pinned now in Instagram. But yeah, let us know where you're from, Zaid. Would love to hear that. Fatima says, hey, sir, Fatima, our good friend from Meekness. How are you, Fatima? Hope that you're doing well. How's the weather in Meekness? Is it still warm? Because we're talking about how warm it is in New York. Let us know how you're doing out there, Fatima. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, but Rex says, I don't think I remember this type of weather in October in past years. Yeah, for sure. It's definitely warm. It's warmer all over the world. You know, I'll tell you a funny story about that, Rex. So I'm a car guy. I love having, fast cars, and things like that. And I belong to some car clubs, and I belong to a car club in New York. And, in New York, it's known for being warm, being cold during the winter. So car clubs tend to not meet, they don't have the cruises or the meetups because there's snow on the ground, and some people, don't like driving their cars in the snow and stuff. And I remember that we had this discussion on one of the group chats where people were like, oh, okay, it's November. It's time to put the cars away for the winter. We're not going to meet again until April or March, whenever the weather clears up. And, people are talking about that. And I remember that I was the only person that kind of pushed back and said, what are you guys talking about? Like, it's global warming. Like, it's 50 degrees in February now, right? February, for those of you who don't know, would typically be a lot of snow in a place like New York and most parts of the United States. But I mean, nowadays we're getting like 50 degrees in the middle of winter, right? Like that's the low. So there's no need to stop meeting or stop your activities for the snow anymore because there's not a lot of snow. So I know people talk about global warming and there's very strong feelings about it, but not all parts of global warming are bad, right? If it can be 55 degrees in the middle of February, I'm not sure there's a lot of people that are disappointed in that, right? I mean, that can have some positive sides too. But I just remember that was one of the things in the car clubs where, where they would usually stop meeting, you can say, hey, we can kind of keep going here because the snow is not as big a factor, or the weather overall is not a big a factor as it might have been in the past. So not all global warming is bad, guys. Leo, our good friend Leo says, good morning, folks. It's a pool day today for me and Rex. Oh my God. I don't know if I'd want to go to a public pool in New York, though. Be careful. But Leo, glad you're doing well out there in New York City. Let us know what you're up to today, Leo. I'm assuming if you are talking about a pool, your building would have a pool. But geez, a public pool in New York City. I don't know if I'm the man for that one. Sarvesh says, hello, Dennis. Sarvesh here from Mumbai, India. Welcome, Sarvesh. Hope you're doing well. Good to see you again. Always good to see you. Manoj is giving us even more information. Greetings, Sir Dennis and everyone. Manoj from Hesaragata, Bangalore, India. Let me know how my pronunciation was there. Hesaragata, Bangalore, India. I hope that's pretty good. Zaid says first time here. Okay, cool, Zaid. Let us know where you're from, Zaid. We just ask people to let us know their city, state, province, country. Just a quick way to introduce yourself. But welcome, glad you're here. Fatima says, yes, today it's warm. Okay, well, hopefully you have air conditioning. I know a lot of homes in Meekness and maybe Morocco overall don't have air conditioning. So I hope you're keeping cool out there, Fatima. Or I hope your school has it too, right? Leo says, oh yeah, me and Rex in Astoria Park public pool today. Oh my gosh. I've never been there, but I'm gonna take my guesses and say that's probably not a great pool. Oh, but gosh, can you imagine that being at the pool in October in New York? That is crazy, guys, right? Manoj says that's a perfect pronunciation. Okay, cool. Heseragata, Bangalore, India. Okay, cool. Thank you for letting us know your. I guess that would be the neighborhood or the part of the city in Bangalore. So thanks for that. But yeah, anybody else who's joining us late, please feel free to introduce yourself. We always ask for city, state, province, country. Just let us know where you're from. Let us, easy way for you to be a part of the community. I don't want anyone to feel like they have to ask some big data science question to participate, right? Anybody can participate. All right, so before I take questions, I thought we would take a look at an article that I posted in the Discord yesterday that I found on TechCrunch. And I don't like TechCrunch a lot. I think they're actually kind of an outdated, dinosaur type of publication. But they did have an interesting article yesterday. Excuse me. Zaid says Zaid from India. Okay, cool. Thanks, Zaid. If you want to be more specific than that, let us know. India is a big and beautiful and diverse country, so lots of parts. And it seems unfair to just say India, right? Nikhil, welcome. Nikhil, we ask people to introduce themselves. Let us know your city, state, province, country. Okay? All right, so let me get my monitor going here. So there was a very interesting article yesterday on TechCrunch, and it caught my eye because I know that there's been a couple of interesting times when I've posted twice about web scraping, and there's some people in our community who have very strong feelings about web scraping, right? And this article, is showing one of those instances where companies are fighting back. In this scenario, it's News Corp. For those of you that don't know, News Corp is I think not just one of, but the largest news organization here in the United States. And actually, let me zoom this a little bit just so you guys can see that a little bit. But they are basically saying, hey, we need to start putting a stop to this. And they are actually suing Perplexity, which is another, LLM generative AI product out there, right? And they are actively saying, hey, look, we need to protect our copyrights because they're calling it a content kleptocracy, which, basically is saying that we are having an open and available stealing of content across the board, right? Not just from our organization, but for everyone, right? And they are citing, the web scraping as enabling that, right? So they are doing, they have filed a lawsuit against Perplexity saying, hey, look, you need to stop scraping our data. And it's basically putting the entire industry on notice because nobody would ever say that Perplexity is the only company doing this, right? Now, I understand that other countries, other cultures around the world have a different view on copyright laws, intellectual property laws, things along those lines, right? But at least here in the United States, there are some active steps that are being taken by these companies. So here, if we look at this paragraph, News Corp is far from the first to make this claim. Many news sites have expressed concern that Perplexity closely replicates their content, with the occasional egregious example, as with the piece that Forbes called out just last week, sending a cease and desist to Perplexity. Just last week, the New York Times sent a cease and desist to Perplexity, excuse me. So for those of you who don't know, at least here in the US, sending a cease and desist letter is your first step towards a lawsuit, right? You can't sue somebody unless you've sent them a cease and desist letter and you've given them an opportunity to kind of, go away on their own. So that's why this article is citing that, because it looks like the New York Times might also be on their way towards a lawsuit with against the same company, Perplexity, right? And then here, Perplexity, for its part, tends to characterize its web scrapers as collecting data not for inclusion in AI training, but as an index for its models to refer to when answering a user's question. So, two things here. One, they're basically admitting that they do web scraping, right? Which, is an interesting strategy. I mean, they could have done it the other way and say, "We'll prove that we do web scraping," right? And then the second part is that they are saying that they are using it as indexing for their models to refer to when attempting to answer a user's question. Well, isn't that what a model does? I mean, I think that they're using the word index here as kind of like in an inappropriate way, right? The index is the model. So I think that their Perplexity's response might be a little bit of wordplay. Well, where they're saying, well, no, we're not using your answers. We're just indexing your answers. That's kind of dishonest, right? I mean, let me know how you guys feel about that in the comments. But it's a little bit dishonest to say, oh, well, we're really just kind of indexing, not using, we're indexing. Like, is there a difference, right? That's a bit of wordplay, right? So here is something that's interesting. So here's where it starts to get a little bit interesting too, right? Look at this paragraph. A number of lawsuits are in process alleging various forms of copyright and infringement, but so far no one has reached a conclusion. Each no doubt hopes it's filing the landmark lawsuit that breaks the back of big AI. So that's interesting, right? We talked a little bit about this when we talked about the FSD cars, where there is legislative law in the U.S. and then there's also case law, and that's what basically this is talking about. That because there has been none of these cases that reach a conclusion, there really is no precedent that you can say to and say, well, this judge in the past has ruled that companies shouldn't be doing this, right? So that hasn't been established, but each no doubt hopes its filing will be the landmark lawsuit that breaks the back of big AI, which is possible, right? Eventually there will be a case that may reach conclusion, and the result is, hey, you guys got to cut it out. Web scraping is illegal, right? Or somebody will declare it as being fully illegal, right? But here's where it gets interesting. We applaud the principled companies like OpenAI, which understands integrity and creativity are essential, blah, 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 blah. News Corp signed a lucrative multi-year content deal with OpenAI earlier this year. So I did a little bit of content around this because OpenAI has gone out and signed deals with people like News Corp. One of their first deals was with the Financial Times over in London, in Europe. And I did some content around that because I think that type of stuff is important to look at, right? So here's the thing. Here's the question. Is News Corp just using this lawsuit as a way to get paid, right? Because in this paragraph, they're basically saying, look, we know you're stealing our content and you can do that as long as you pay us, right? Like, come to us with a contract. Because they're basically saying, OpenAI is going about this the right way because they paid us, right? So you kind of have to weigh those motivations and say, well, look, I mean, are they really like, trying to be champions of intellectual property and all that? Or are they just trying to come to some sort of payment agreement with Perplexity and the other LLMs, right? Now, if you want to take it one step further and you want to wear like your conspiracy hat and all that, it's possible that OpenAI would also be funding these types of lawsuits. For all we know, this could have been built into that contract, right? OpenAI could have said, hey, look, News Corp, we're sorry for scraping your data. We'll pay you, but give me a second to get rid of this. So for all we know, OpenAI could have said, look, News Corp, we're sorry for scraping your data. We'll pay you, but you got to promise that you're going to go after all the other LLMs that aren't paying you. Right? I mean, who's to say that's not built into the contract? Where OpenAI is saying, yeah, we'll pay you, but you got to help us out here. You got to go after our competitors. Because Perplexity is an OpenAI competitor, right? And AI is an industry. They are not they're not a charitable cause, right? OpenAI is very much a for-profit company, right? So there's a lot of things at play in what's seemingly a simple article, right? I mean, this article is only, a couple paragraphs long. I mean, I don't know anybody who would still want to work for TechCrunch, right? I mean, an intern probably wrote this at TechCrunch, right? So lots of nuances to keep up with items that if you're going to be a data scientist in this field, you should be reading articles like this. Because it's not only is it going to help you understand the development of these companies, but also some of the politics and some of the maneuvering that's happening around some of these LLMs, right? So something for everyone to keep in mind, right? That you kind of have to, keep up with the industry trends, but also realize the underlying messages there, right? Because to me, what this is saying is that all of these companies are probably going to be headed to some sort of licensing agreements from these companies, right? Like, the news industry overall hasn't been doing very well across the board, right? Like the New York Times, has had to change their business model significantly in the past 10, 15 years, right? So is this just a money grab for them? Are they really trying to help intellectual property rights? Are they really trying to sue Perplexity, or are they really just trying to get paid by Perplexity? So something to think about there, guys. So if you have any comments or any thoughts on that, let me know. I think I got a couple more messages, but let me know what you think about that. And remember, guys, as I've told you before too, maybe you're still a student, maybe you don't have enough knowledge to have articles, or maybe you're still working on your first research, but it's important to have positions on this, right? You can have a position paper on something like this. Like, what's your position on this? You should have that, right? People are going to ask you about that. So think about that too, right? You can have a position on it. All right, so Zaid says they are from J&K, India. J&K. Sorry, I don't know what that is. Would love to know though, but yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know that detail. Joseph, a good friend Joseph. Hello, Dennis. Hope you and everyone are well. Doing well, Joseph. Thank you so much. Appreciate you asking. Harris, you're back. Hope you're doing well out there, Harris. Hello, sir. How are you? I'm doing well, Harris. How are you? Hope you're doing well, man. Atharv, is it Atharv? I think it's or maybe just Athar. Athar says, hey, I'm from Bloomington, Indiana, USA. Very cool, Athar. I'm assuming you go to school out there, so welcome. I think you've been here before, so welcome back. Afsal says, maybe something Spotify did with the music industry could save this industry in the future. Yeah, maybe, Afsal. Maybe. Absol, I can't remember if you told us where you were from. Absol, please remind us where you're from. But here's the thing that's challenging with following something similar to Spotify. One, there's no LLMs with advertisers yet, right? That's probably coming, right? If we're being honest, that's probably coming. So how do you handle the free users, right? There are people who pay for LLMs, myself included. but there's still plenty of free users, right? You can't pay them. Or how would you pay the content creators based on that, right? Like, how would you tell the New York Times that they can make money from some users but not all users? And then also, how would you, from an LLM perspective, right? You're generating answers, right? So how would you attribute to say the algorithm generated this one answer, but it pulled from these 4 content resources? So we need to go, we need to pay those 4 content providers. I don't know if there's a way to do that. I really don't. And I mean that from like a technical LLM perspective, right? When it's a generative answer, how do you credit the right creator? So yeah, I mean, like I think that the straight up licensing deal, like what some are doing, makes sense, but I don't think that you could do it any other way, right? And then, like I said, you'd also have to introduce advertising, which kind of stinks, right? There's so much advertising everywhere now, so I don't know. It's an interesting thought, Afsal. Khalif, our good friend Khalif is back. Hey, sir, everyone. Hope we're doing well. Yeah, we're doing really well, Khalif. Thanks for asking. Hope the same for you. Rex says, yeah, I love these sessions as I'm new to the field and appreciate we'll be asked for opinions in these matters. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, Rex. So you know what? I'm gonna take you to task on that. Rex, what's your view here? What's your view on these LLMs out there web scraping, basically not caring, right? I mean, if you're out there web scraping the New York Times, you're basically giving them the middle finger and just using their data, right? Or in this case, News Corp runs the Dow Jones and a couple other big companies, so they're probably using like their financial data, right? So Rex, what's your position on this? You just started a new job. Somebody hears that you're the new data scientist, and they stop by your desk and say, "Hey, Rex, I read this article talking about how these LLM companies get their data. What do you think?" So what do you think, guys? Rex or anybody else wants to contribute, let me know in the comments. Harris says, can you please paste the link of that blog post in which you were talking? I came late here. Harris, you can find it in the Discord. The Discord will have it. I posted it there last night, I believe. Yeah, that's the quickest way to get it. Well, actually, I guess I can also just copy it from here. So let me see if I can. Give me just a second. All right, I think that should be a clickable link in the YouTube chat. If not, let me know. Okay, I think I might have. Well, Rex says, I tell them, let me talk with my Oracle and I'll get back to you. And not a bad answer. Not a bad answer. But think about the expertise, Rex, that you're establishing when you're able to give them an answer right away, right? Because I want to walk away with the impression of, wow, Rex knows his industry news, right? He kept up with it. He knew what I was talking about. And 2, he gave me a reasonable answer, right? I may not agree with it, right? And I don't have to agree with it. You don't have to please everybody. You, Rex, the person answering, doesn't have to please everybody. But it's much more powerful when you can say, yeah, sure, I know what you're talking about. Here's what I think about it, and if you have other questions, let me know. It's so much more powerful when you're able to give an answer right away, right? So consider that, Rex. Consider that. But yeah, it's always helpful to have a position. So if anybody else wants to give their position, I know some of you are still early in your careers, right? But again, it's important for you to have at least an opinion or a view on these things. People will ask you of this, right? Maybe even your professors would ask you of this, right? So make sure, if you want to do that, if you want to start practicing that, feel free to put that in the comments, okay? Afsal says it's Kerala, India. Okay, cool. Thank you, Afsal. Appreciate that. Sarvesh says, are the LLMs web scraping proprietary content also? Do you not view these news articles as proprietary content though? Sarvesh? Because all content is proprietary, right? Somebody wrote it, right? Whether it's out on the web or behind a paywall, it doesn't matter, right? So keep that in mind. I think that they're doing all kinds of scraping across the board. I mean, they have to be, right? Just in case some of you aren't clear on this, because it's something that I've mentioned in small spurts, but never actually, expressed exactly, is the reason why LLMs are so impressive is because they cover like virtually every topic under the sun, right? That's what makes them special. So they have to be web scraping like everything. Websites, articles, business data, old directories and guides, instruction manuals, right? Everything. So yeah, I mean, everything that they're scraping is proprietary. Fitis says, hey Fitis, we asked people to introduce themselves, so let us know your city, state, province, country, please. Sarvesh says, I meant that once they need a subscription behind a paywall. No. Yeah, guys, just so we're clear on this, right? Copyright and intellectual property laws do not require for you to be behind a paywall. If I write something and I publish it on the web and somebody steals it and somebody scrapes it, and that's still considered stealing. Just because I'm not charging for it doesn't mean it's not stolen. It's still my intellectual property, right? Somebody had to create whatever you're reading or using. Doesn't matter whether they were charging for it, whether they were being paid for it or not. So no, definitely don't make that distinction. That's probably one of the biggest distinctions between that I'm guessing exist across cultures when it comes to intellectual property rights. But yeah, definitely don't. There's no distinction there for a paywall. If somebody wrote it, they own the by default they own the intellectual property rights to it. So yeah, don't make that mistake. Harris says, I want to know, is your 3 Sundays end-to-end project a complete project from start to end? Not yet. We've only done it. We've only met for three meetings. So no, not yet, but it will be. Right now, I think we are, I think it was like 6 hours. We're 6 hours into the project right now. Something like that. 7 hours? I can't remember. But it will be an end-to-end project. I think we still need maybe like 5 more sessions. When I first started, I thought it'd be like 8 to 10 sessions. So we'll see. How many Sundays will it take? What's the rush, Harris? What's the rush? Good things take time. Good things take time. I don't know, Harris. Harris, part of the fun of doing this is that we can just kind of keep things flexible and keep things going as we need them, right? Like I said, I thought it was going to be like an 8 to 10 part series, but that's just a guess. Might be more, might be less. But what's the rush, my friend? Calm down. Everybody pump the brakes. Everybody calm down. It's going to take what it's going to take. See, now here's the reason why I'm giving you this answer, Harris. Because you're concerning me. You're concerning me here. Because my biggest fear is that somebody would take the project that we're working on, right? Because we're starting to form the project a little bit, right? We can kind of see where it's headed, right? My fear is that somebody would take that project as is and then go and put it in a paper or put it on their CV or put it on their LinkedIn or something like that, right? If you're doing that, wrong. That's totally the wrong approach, right? What we want to do is you want to use that as a framework to build other things beyond it, right? Like it's just supposed to be an example, and then you can take your own personal interests and whatever and go out and kind of build it on your own, right? Or build something else on your own, right? I want to know the complete project roadmap of data science project. That's why I'm asking. It's already in the session. I've shown the methodology in every single session we've had, right? Remember, guys, when in doubt, go back to the methodology. What does the methodology tell you? We did that this past Sunday, right? This past Sunday, I only had a couple of slides because it's the methodology that guides you, right? So that's already out there, Harris. Do you know how to use it? That's a whole other story, right? But the roadmap for data science projects, it's out there. It's in every session. That slide with the methodology, I guarantee you, is in all 3 sessions that we've done for that. So it's out there, but you got to know it. You got to know what you're doing, right? I can give you like the same manual that surgeons use for like removing an appendix. That doesn't mean you know how to remove an appendix, right? But it's out there. Anise says, interesting perspective that LLMs will use advertising to handle the free users. I haven't thought of that. Oh, that's 100% going to happen. Oh, yeah. Okay, so Anise, you can't be the only person who hadn't thought of that, right? I mean, you're probably not alone in that. Okay, so guys, in the chat, before today's session, okay? Before you heard me talk about this, did you anticipate that LLMs at some point would have advertising or not? So give me a 1 if you thought advertising was on its way, or give me a 0 if you're like Anise here, and Anise says, hey, I hadn't thought about LLMs having advertising, right? Like that, I hadn't crossed my mind or whatever, right? And that's not a bad thing, right? I'm not trying to pick on Anise or anybody else, but just to get a quick check from you guys, give me a 1 if you already kind of anticipated that LLMs would have advertising, or give me a 0 if this is new to you. If you feel like Anise and like, oh wow, I didn't realize we'd have advertising. So let me know. All right, Rex is voting 1. Afsal, excuse me, guys. Sorry, Afsal. I'm gonna get to your comments as soon as we finish with this voting here. Oh gosh, what was your name again? Was it Abdulaziz? I think it's Abdulaziz. Abdulaziz, welcome back. Glad to see you, my friend. He's voting, or they're voting a 1. All right, anybody else? 1 or 0? 1 if you anticipated LLMs carrying advertising, 0 if you did not. Last call for votes. Last call for votes. Okay, Absol also voting a 1. All right, it looks like most votes are coming in for people we're already anticipating. So Anise, yeah, absolutely. I mean, advertising to LLMs is 100% going to happen. I remember I shared that with one of my corporate clients when Microsoft first made. If you remember, Microsoft made a massive investment into OpenAI, maybe like a year ago now, maybe a little bit longer than that. Maybe like a year or so. They made a massive investment into OpenAI, right? And I sent that article out to some clients, and I told them, I said, you know what, this just means that they're going to do advertising. Like, and I remember the exact example I gave them was that, you know, you're going to be getting some answers, and then it's going to say, these answers brought to you by your friends at Microsoft, right? And then they're going to be advertising some new tablet or new software or whatever, right? But, you know, obviously there's, you know, that's going to happen, right? I mean, Microsoft has to make its money back somehow. OpenAI has to make its money somehow too, right? So I think it's 100% going to happen. 100% going to happen. It's just a matter of time. Harris says, sir, I don't know this technology as I'm new to DS. That's why I'm not voting. Okay, fair enough. I appreciate that, Harris. Fair enough. Yeah, I can understand why people are focused on the technology side, but this is really more of a business thing, right? I mean, it's just business, right? That they're going to try to make some money at it, right? Like there are no charitable companies out there, right? All of these companies steal your data, they use it, they sell it, right? So there's nothing free out there. So I respect why you're saying that, but you know, just keep in mind it's all business, right? So Afsal says, I mean, publishers are making their profit from the ads from their blogs. With LLM, the profit will reduce since nobody had to go there. That's right. If somehow we find a way to pay them according to our LLM sources for a response, that way we can ensure the quality of content coming. But here's the thing, Afsal, that's very, very difficult. Extremely difficult to do those correct attributions, right? Because think of all the generic questions that you ask of an LLM. Like, just as an example, right? Let's say I'm traveling to New York City. I can go into an LLM and say, I'm gonna go to New York City. I have 3 days and 2 nights. Please recommend 3 different hotels and 3 different sightseeing tours that I can do while I'm in New York City. Right? There are like a ton of sources that an LLM can pull from to do that, and I mean that in the variety of sources and also with duplicate information, right? Like I asked for 3 hotel reviews. Well, I mean, a ton of places have hotel reviews or hotel recommendations, I should say, right? So I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's possible to attribute and say in this generic answer, right? Of give me 3 hotel recommendations, right? I specifically used the LLM specifically used information from this source, not this source, even though it has the same info, but I did use this source and this source, but not that one. Like, how would you do that? I'm not sure it's possible. Like, I really think, like, from a technical perspective, that's not possible right now. I really don't. So if anybody else, you know, has a different opinion on that, I'm welcome to hear. I'm happy to be wrong on this. But yeah, I just don't see the technical feasibility of it, you know? Or, you know, or like the other examples I've told you guys, right? If we think about, like, you know, that's kind of a straightforward question, right? But I've given you guys the example that I've used with clients where I say, you know, tell me about this product. okay, now tell me about this product in the style of Taylor Swift, right? An LLM can do that, right? An LLM can give you two different views on the same topic, and one of them will be like a Taylor Swift song, right? You can do that. Who do you pay in that scenario? Because you asked for it in the style of Taylor Swift. And that's the generative side of the LLM, right? Where the LLM comes up with that, right? So if Taylor Swift didn't write that, but it's in the style of her, do you still owe money to Taylor Swift? Maybe, maybe not. And if you do, how much? It's not her lyrics, right? It's the style of her voice, of her artist, but it's not her actual independent lyrics. So do you owe her money? I don't know. I'd lean towards no, but I could see both sides, right? Because you clearly used Taylor Swift training data, but the answer was not Taylor Swift, not written by Taylor Swift, right? So what about that scenario, guys? Let me know what you think about that, right? Okay, well, Afsal says it's not her content, so no need to pay her. But you clearly used her content for training, though, right? Otherwise, how does the LLM know who Taylor Swift is? But as Afsal says, she can't prove that. But she probably can prove that you used her lyrics or her songs for training. She can probably do that, right? Because otherwise, the LLM would have no knowledge of Taylor Swift. And the LLM's not a sentient being that just discovered Taylor Swift on their own, right? It had to be given some training data. So guys, maybe that's really the question, right? If you were to pay content creators, are you paying them on the training data use or on the outputs? On the actual queries? So Afsal, continuing your thought, right? Can you not pay Taylor Swift because you can show that, yes, I used your data, but I didn't have any queries that relied on that data. Now, obviously, that's unlikely. Taylor Swift's very popular, but there could be scenarios where the LLM companies would say, yes, I did scrape your data, to some small company or whatever, but nobody cared about your data and I didn't use it, so I don't owe you anything. Is that fair? Maybe, maybe not, right? Me, the company, the content creator, my data is still in your system. So I'm going to argue that it doesn't matter whether somebody used it, my data still lives in your machine, in your LLM, right? So I can say, I think you still owe me money, right? So I don't know, Afsal. I think that Taylor Swift would be able to make a case that you have my data somewhere. You have my song somewhere. Rex says, as the saying goes, if something is free, you are the product. Nice. I like that, Rex. I like that. I like that saying a lot. Yeah, you might be the product, right? In that scenario. Yeah, I mean, your data gets used and sold a lot more than most people realize. A lot more than most people realize. Anise says, do you think that advertising in LLMs will outperform advertising in social media? Too early to tell, because that market, that model has yet to be established. But my gut tells me yes. It'll certainly outperform advertising in search engines, right? Like Google should be very concerned, right? Like if I can advertise in LLMs and I can forego advertising like on Google AdSense or AdWords or Google's so complex with their advertising, right? Like, yeah, I'd be worried because who uses search engines anymore, right? Like, why is ChatGPT not your default search engine, like for things you're searching, right? So if I was somebody like Google, yeah, I'd definitely be concerned about that, right? But as far as social media advertising, I don't know, because I don't know a lot about social media advertising to begin with. I know I ignore most of it, but I don't know the interactions that are yet to come between social media and AI LLMs, right? Like, I'm guessing that there's probably somebody working on a social LLM, right? Here's what your friends were also looking for. Here's how you and your friends can get LLM answers for your upcoming trip to New York that you're taking together, right? Like as a group, you'll be able to approach an LLM and say, "Hey, we're planning a wedding in 3 months. Can you help us plan it?" Right? Like, that's going to happen, right? There's probably somebody working on it, right? I mean, one of those idiots in Silicon Valley is working on it, right? So, yeah. I mean, that's gonna have an impact. How much? Too early, right? Ahmed, welcome. I think it's your first time. We always ask people to introduce themselves, so let us know your city, state, province. But glad you're here. Rex says, "Yep, I don't use Google search engine anymore. I do Perplexity, and when needed, I go read the resources it uses." Okay, yeah. Well, Perplexity is getting sued, so might not be around anymore. Just kidding. They'll come to a conclusion. But yeah, it's just one of those things where why would you use a search engine anymore, right? And my understanding is that Google's advertising is still very much driven by search ads, right? Like I didn't. Their advertising revenue is what I meant to say, right? Right. I mean, they bastardized that, right? Because now, anytime you do any query, the first 4 items aren't the actual search results. It's always the sponsored ads, right? So, yeah. I mean, Google should be very worried in that regard. I think that's very not dangerous, but it's a threat to their business model for sure. But yeah, Afsal, if you wanted to share additional thoughts on that, I mean, I think it's an interesting discussion. Like I said, I can see both ways on where you would owe Taylor Swift money, right? Because her data has to exist somewhere in the system. It's also an interesting part to look at and think about how, sometimes when we talk about the projects that we do or the train, we make a distinction between like the training cycles and the prediction cycles, right? Because how you train a model is completely different than how you use a model, right? And those can be 2 completely different programs. They usually are. And we're going to see that more and more as we get into the project. Is that 1 payment? Is that 2 payments? Like, can you find those attributions to say, well, we can pay you if we have your data, but we're not going to pay you depending on how many people use it, right? And again, that's assuming they can even track it to begin with, which I think is not very possible. But we'll see. Interesting times to come, right? And this article kind of speaks to that also, in the sense that they're saying, well, look, eventually somebody is going to make a ruling on this, and that's going to break the back of AI, is I guess is what they said, right? So who knows? Afsal says, need to find a new business model, I guess. Yeah, sure. There's definitely an opportunity here for a new business model, right? And they want one, right? Because like I said, the news companies overall haven't been doing well, right? If you look at the financials of some of these companies, they're not doing so great. I think, even the New York Times, who has, I think, only recently found success with having a paywall and having subscribers. If I remember right, they're still barely profitable. They're not like, raking in the money, right? Just because you start up a paywall doesn't mean people are going to be excited about it, right? So it depends. But guys, thank you so much for the time we've spent. Really appreciate everyone's perspective. Really appreciate everyone's contributions, as far as giving their view or giving their questions. I can appreciate that some people were saying, "Hey, I don't know about this," or "I hadn't realized that, hadn't thought about that." That's not always easy to admit, right? So, congrats to you guys who are willing to step up and say, "Hey, I don't know enough about this, but I want to learn." So, good for you guys. Yeah, and if you saw the references to the Sundays we do longer classes. So if you guys want to come and see how a project is done from end to end, we had a great ideation session last week. So this week we're going to do a little bit more of that, a little bit more of analytics, a little bit more of EDA, and start to do some more work on a project. But that's Sundays at 1500 GMT if you want to join us. So again, thank you so much. Please take care of yourselves. Please take care of your families, and I'll see you next time.